What's up YouTube, this is Tubedigga. In this video I'm going to show you a cool technique where you can use velocity to create some interesting drum patterns, drum fills and drum rolls and other effects. Before I get into this video, I just want to thank all my current subscribers, anyone that's liked and shared my videos, anyone that supports me on social media, and of course all my current patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to become a patron of mine on Patreon, please head over to www.patreon.com/Tubedigga. I also offer private lessons via Skype or Zoom. If you're interested in those, please contact me at tubedigga@gmail.com. And finally, if you don't already know, I've got an MPC Masterclass video course available on my website. There's 3 different options: the basics version, which is a great resource for beginners and upward, including over 26 videos covering many essential techniques to get you started using your MPC. There's a standard version, which includes over 40 videos, including a boom bap masterclass and an aim and break masterclass. And lastly, there's the premium version, which includes all the content from the standard version, plus over $200 worth of sample and expansion packs, which are currently for sale on my website. All courses will be updated with new content from time to time, so what you get now will only increase over time. If you're interested in any of those courses, please head over to www.tubedigga.com/MPC Masterclass, and if you'd like a 20% off coupon code, that is all capitals MPC Masterclass 20. All the links for all of that are below this video in the description box. So how can we use velocity in our MPC to create some interesting drum patterns, drum rolls and fills and other effects? Well, first of all, let's load a sample into this project. So I'm going to double tap my menu button and that will take me to my browser. And I'm just going to load in this aim and break sample here, which is called aim and loop 001. So I'm just going to press my first pad. It's going to go green and that will enable me to load this to that pad. Now I'm going to go to the main page by pressing my main button. And I'm going to change my sequence BPM to 170 beats per minute. Now I'm going to press and hold my menu button and press pad 13, which will take me to sample edit. As you can see, we're viewing the from BPM options here. Now, for some reason it's defaulting to that, but the default view is usually this. So if we press the white arrow in the bottom right hand corner, that will slide that over so we can use the from BPM feature to correctly detect the BPM of this sample. So if I press detect BPM in the middle there, you can see the MPC is calculating this sample at 90.94 beats per minute. So that's basically half of what the actual BPM is. So if we press close and then press from BPM, we need to change the beats of this loop, because I know this is a 1-bar loop, that's 4 beats. So if I move my data wheel anti-clockwise, you can see now that it's correctly calculating the BPM of this sample to 181.89 beats per minute, which I believe to be correct. If we press match, this will now reduce the pitch and therefore the speed of this sample to match with our sequence tempo of 170 beats per minute. And now you can see the BPM has been reduced to 170 because it's reduced the pitch by minus 1.17 semitones. So to double check that, I'm going to go to the main page by pressing my main button. I'm going to record arm my sequencer, and I'm just going to record in 2 bars of this aim and break. So as you can hear, that is perfectly in time with our sequence tempo. So I'm just going to press my erase button and erase these notes. Just press do it. Now I'm going to press and hold menu and press pad 14 to go to program edit. So let's look at the master page. In the middle, we can see that the layer playback is by default set to velocity. So this means if we haven't got the full level button engaged on our MPC, depending on the amount of pressure that we apply to the pad, this aim and break or any other sample will play back at different volumes depending on how hard we hit the pad. So let's keep it in velocity mode, and now let's take a look at the 3rd subpage of the samples page. So I'm going to press samples once, twice, 3 times. Over on the right hand side, you can see for each layer of a pad, we've got independent velocity start and velocity end controls. So if I was to load in the aim and brake to the 3 additional layers on this pad, we could now control the different layers to play back at different velocity levels. So as an example, if I go back to the first subpage of the samples page, we could set the first layer to just play the kick by adjusting the endpoint. So if I just zoom in as far as I can go, that should do. If we go to layer 2, we can choose the ride symbol, which is the next position in the sample. If we go to layer 3, we can choose the snare, which is here. And then layer 4, we can choose our 2 ghost notes here, our ghost snare, which is the rolling section. So now it's just a case of adjusting the individual velocity ranges for each of these layers. So every time the note gets triggered, depending on the velocity, it will play back a different section of this aim and brake. So again, if we go to the third subpage of our samples page, so we know our full velocity range is 128 or 0 to 127. So looking at the bottom layer, I'm going to adjust the velocity start and velocity end, so that layer only gets triggered if it receives a velocity value between 0 and 31. So let's bring the end down to 31. So this has now got a range of 32. Likewise, we're going to go up to layer 3 and adjust the velocity start, and that's going to start at 32. And that's going to go all the way up to 64. So again, we've got a velocity range of 32 there. We're going to go up to layer 2 and the velocity start for this. We're going to start at 65. And we're going to go up to 96. And the velocity start for our first layer is going to start at 97. So we're pretty much splitting all the velocity ranges into a value of 32 each. So this means depending on the velocity that we either enter via tapping the pad physically or program into the step sequencer or grid editor, we're going to get different sections of this aim and brake playing back, which we've set obviously by setting the start and end points across this brake. Now obviously we only get 4 different sections of this, but of course we can use additional pads and split our samples up into further sections. But I'm just going to be doing this for this one pad for this tutorial. So the last thing that we need to set in the modulation page is this amplitude parameter shown right in the middle of the screen. So what this is basically the default setting. So when we haven't got our full level button engaged, it allows us to play back our samples at different volume levels based on the amount of pressure that we apply to a pad, just to give us a more expressive playback when using our MPCs. If we've got full level engaged on our MPCs, that overrides this setting, so the MPC pads won't respond to pressure. But bringing this down to 0 will essentially do the same thing. This particular pad will now not respond to pressure because I've not got any range on there at all. This is what we want, otherwise when we use our velocity start and end points, this will affect the volume as well. I don't actually want that, I just want it to affect the different layers on this particular pad. So let's go to the main page and now press the step sequencer icon just over on the left hand panel here. Let's take the time divisions down to 1/8 notes. Let's make sure we're looking at bar 1 by pressing the bar minus. It was currently looking at bar 2, so let's press the minus button at the bottom of the screen. This is bar 1. Let's reduce the bars to 1, just so we can work in this simple 1 bar loop. I'm just going to enter some notes here, just by dragging my finger across the screen in these smaller blue sections here. And if I press play now, it's just going to play the first layer of our aim and brake, because this is where the kick was set, and as we know, this will only trigger this layer because it's set at the full velocity range. Likewise, if I bring this down slightly, this should only play our second layer, which is the ride cymbal. If I bring it down further to just below this line, this will be playing the snare. And if we bring it down into this last velocity range, this will just play the ghost note section. And if you actually press and hold on one of these steps just above the blue, actually on the yellow section, or green as you can see here, you can see where it says parameter just above velocity towards the top left of the screen. It shows you the current velocity, and you can see that going up and down. So then if we draw in a random pattern, we will get a random pattern. And we can use our preset shapes over here on the right to give us more of a conventional pattern. So let's just try this. Let's press it again. So it's just pretty much changing the different layers based on the velocity that we feed into the step sequencer. If we now go to 16th notes for our time division, we can now program in a more conventional beat. So on step 5, that would be a snare. So let's just bring the velocity down here, and let's also do that for step 13. In between the kick and the snare, we want a ride cymbal, as we know that falls in this range, so below 97. And my apologies, let's bring this down so the snare gets triggered. So that needs to be under 65 but above 33. On steps 7 and 9, we want our ghost notes, which we know need to be below 31. Let's put another step here, which would be another kick. This is another snare, and we can just put on step 15 another ghost note or rolling section of our break. This should now be a classic 2-step pattern. I just want to check that snare because I don't think I did that correctly. This needs to be pretty much the same as step 5. Let's now go to the main page and press the pencil icon in the sequence area, which is up in the top right hand corner. And let's press double length. So now we've got 2 bars of this 2-step pattern. Let's go back to the main page and back to the step sequencer. Let's press the plus symbol where it says bars at the bottom of the screen. As you can see, we've got the same pattern in bar 2. And let's just do a little bit of fiddling with all these different notes. So I've just populated this last section here with some 16th notes, which will give us this. So you can quickly and easily create new patterns just by putting your finger on the screen and drawing different velocity curves. If we go higher with our time divisions, so let's choose 32. When you choose 32, you'll notice that this parameter just next to it on the right where it says 116, you have to press this right arrow to view steps 17 to 32. So if you play about with the presets as you go along, you're going to get different patterns, and it makes for, you know, just quite a nice creative process to play about with this. So what I would do is find a pattern that I like, settle on it, go back to the main page, press the pencil icon in the sequence area again, and press double length, and then we can go back to the grid, and in bar 4 we can change things up. So if we just choose a different preset, So you can quickly and easily rearrange and remix your patterns just by simply choosing new presets, doubling the length of your sequence, going to a particular bar and messing around with the different velocity curves. So let's do that again. Let's go to main, pencil icon in the sequence area, double the length, back to the grid editor. Let's now go up to bar 8 and let's go to steps 17 to 32 by pressing this section up here. And let's just change the shape here as well. In fact, let's choose this bottom one and let's listen to that. So obviously some patterns that you choose will be a little bit off time or sound a bit wonky, so you might have to do some additional editing to get them precise. But just as a starting point to get some interesting patterns using the 30-second time division, it's a really great way to put in some patterns quite quickly and easily. So we can also go to the grid editor and just take a look at how that looks. And you can see all the different notes and velocities there. Let's pop open that. And that's how it would look in the grid. Of course we can use it here, but things will start to get a bit less precise. So we could just get our pencil and just do a load of random stuff with that. Just something to mention on that, if you press and hold your note repeat button and take your time divisions completely off by pressing the current time division so there's none selected, this will allow you to move along the screen a lot easier. Otherwise it's going to be snapping to the grid. So again, this will give us a completely random pattern now. Now, let's erase all of this. Press do it. Let's go back to the step sequencer. I'm going to change the time divisions back to 1/8 notes. Let's just put in some notes here. And let's just do a simple pattern like this. And let's just reduce the bars to 1 bar, which is my bad. I did this in bar 8, I believe. So let's just do it in bar 1. And let's just do that again. Let's get this downwards curve so it starts with the kick drum here. There seems to be a bit of a bug with the note input on the screen because I can't push this beyond 124. I'm not too sure whether that's my MPC or if it's a universal bug. But if we press the preset again, it should correct it. So now we've got this basic pattern again. Now what happens if we knock out a couple of these notes? Because we're doing it in the step sequencer, it's only going to play the section of the sample that we've chosen in the program editor. So what I mean by that is if we press and hold menu and go to program edit and take a look at our samples. So layer 1, as you can see, it's just going to play this kick and it's just going to stop dead and it's not going to fill that gap that we've knocked out in the step sequencer. So an interesting thing that you can do is set all these layers to loop. Now to loop a sample, as you might already know, we need to go to the master page and we need to change the sample playback mode from 1 shot to note on, which is just shown in the middle here. Then we need to go to the samples page again, and for each of these layers let's switch on the loop. I prefer ping pong because it's smoother, so I'm going to do that for all my layers. So I'm just pressing pad loop twice to give us this ping pong with the 2 arrows either side of the loop symbol. And let's do it for layer 4 as well. We also need to go to the envelope page, and because it's set to note on, by default the envelope has got this sharp cutoff with the release, or a release value of 0 should I say. So if we increase that to somewhere around 75, that should do it. That will give us a nice release on each of these layers. If we don't have that, it will just stop dead as it did before. So we want to give it at least a little bit of release, and well, you can set it to whatever you want because it will give you different effects. So I'm going to set mine at 90 or 85, that's fine. The other thing that you might want to do is go up to the top right hand corner and press the gear symbol, and this brings up the settings, and we want to switch loop lock off and press close. This will now give us an independent loop point. So as an example, we can set that here for layer 2. Layer 1, we can set it here. So the kick drum will do this now. And let's set it for layer 3 for the snare drum. Let's put that there. And layer 4, we've done that. So they're all done now. So now, if we go to the main page and back to the step sequencer, these gaps will be filled because the samples are looping and we've set a bit of a longer release time. You could just go on forever just mucking about with these patterns and choosing different loop points, different samples. You can do it on different pads with a completely different sample, a musical sample. So it's just quite a nice little special technique that I've discovered using those velocity ranges for each of the layers on a pad. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, if you're interested in one of my MPC Masterclass video courses, which include additional content similar to this, I've yet to update every single course with MPC 2.10 content, but pretty much the only thing that has really significantly changed between the operating system is the program editor and how all the parameters are laid out. But the masterclass courses that I offer are still extremely relevant. The information is completely relevant. It's just that the program editor is laid out slightly differently, but you shouldn't have any problems trying to navigate around the course because everything is pretty much the same, all bar the layout of the program editor. But as said, I do update those courses from time to time with new and additional content, and obviously any new content that is going to be added from this point onwards will be using 2.10, but everything else in those video courses is a goldmine of information and techniques. And again, if you want private lessons with myself, please contact me at tubedigga@gmail.com for more details. If you'd like to become a patron, it's www.patreon.com/tubedigga. All the information for all of this is linked in the description box below this video. Hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. I'll see you on the next one. This is Tubedigga, and I'm out.